first off, just how did you get into producing movies and television shows? What kind of got you to that point?
Actually, I got interested in film because of a class that I took when I was in university.
Really?
So perfect, a perfect segue. I took a program when I was at Stanford in British film and broadcasting when I was doing my semester abroad.
Mm-hmm. And what got you more specifically into the sci-fi genre? I mean, you got a lot of big titles, in your IMDb credits and everything, and everybody knows. I mean, Terminator, Aliens. I mean, I'm a Tremors fan growing up. Where did you get sci-fi from? How did you get that kind of influence?
I read science fiction from the time that I was a kid. I actually used to consult for the local library. I grew up in Palm Springs, California, and I became their young adult advisor in science fiction, fantasy, literature. And whenever I had to do a book review, I chose one of those books to write about. But back then, being a geek or a nerd was not really something you wanted to be as a girl, and I persevered anyway. And luckily my passion is caught up with the rest of the mainstream entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, is it kind of that thing where zombies is the thing, or it's the cool thing now? Is it kind of a perfect storm coming into Walking Dead that right around the same time that this project opportunity comes along, that it kind of makes it blow up into this huge television show everybody wants to watch?
It is funny. I think if the show was really just about the zombies, I don't think that many people would be watching. That would get old really, really fast if it was just the zombie kill of the week. I think people were intrigued because it's about zombies, and that's part of the zeitgeist, but I think people keep coming back because they're invested in the characters.
And I think on top of that, with the character development of the show, how hard is it to balance the comic book side of things, where there's already this path laid out of how things are supposed to go, but then being on the creative side of, we have to make it for television. How does that balance work when you're on set?
We're really lucky because the creator of the comic book, Robert Kirkman, is one of the executive producers. He's involved in the writing, and he essentially stated from the very beginning, these should be two parallel worlds. They sometimes intersect, they sometimes overlap, but they're not the same thing. And so with his guidance and with his encouragement, we divert quite a bit. And we have characters that don't exist in the comic book, and we've killed characters off who are still alive in the comic book.
Yeah, and how is it that constant struggle with him is just, being so loyal to that and then having to change it completely just so it's television and it's a little bit different?
No, he's one who led the charge of, don't want to do the exact same thing I did before. I've done that. Let's explore tangents that I didn't have the opportunity to explore in the books.
And kind of flipping into actually filming in Georgia. I mean, I know the TV show is set near Atlanta, but the fact that you are filming in Georgia, how does the tax breaks kind of help you bring a business to this location?
Well, the first episode actually was Rick Grimes journeying into Atlanta, and there are shots in the pilot that are panels from the comic book brought to life. So we knew we wanted to shoot in Georgia. On the other hand, it's a business, and if the incentives hadn't existed, we may have shot second unit here, but I doubt that we'd be based here. So it's an absolute imperative that tax incentives continue to exist so that productions continue to film here.
And kind of jumping around a little bit here again, with all the things that you've worked on, what's been your favorite? Like, what's the one thing that you go back and say, is it The Walking Dead because you're currently doing that, or is there some project that sticks out in your mind as that was so much fun and I'm proud that I did that?
I think the first film that I made on my own, The Terminator, would have to be my favorite because it was the first one. It was a film that was almost impossible to get going, and the fact that it became not only a hit, but critically successful and is now in the Library of Congress, something I never could have imagined when I started in the business in 1978.
And now kind of going back to The Walking Dead, how did you get involved exactly with The Walking Dead? Was it just a project that somebody brought to you, or did you seek out working an adaptation of this comic book? Was it?
I'd read the comic book, and initially I was focusing on features. And I reached out to Robert Kirkman, who said, I'm really not interested in pursuing it as a feature because it really has no end. And then when I shifted and decided to pursue television to the same degree that I had been pursuing features, I went back to him and he said, the rights are available again. And I partnered with a very good friend of mine, the writer, director, producer Frank Darabont, and along with Robert Kirkman, we were able to sell it to AMC.
Okay, and so after 3 or 4 seasons, people are starting to think, okay, there's got to be an end game. How long do you see the TV series going? Is it the way the storylines are progressing? Do you have like a cap number on how many seasons, or?
No, we're trying to beat The Simpsons, and I think that was 23. Robert Kirkman has over 250 issues of the comic book in mind, and he's not even up to 120 yet in comic books. So we have a long way to go, and at this point, as long as our fans are interested, we want to keep telling the stories. And
so, with so many of the movies that you've done, the success that you've had, how does it feel? Like, what does it mean to you that starting, everybody starts like an unpaid internship and working your way up to now that you have like a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, that people associate your names with such great projects? What does that mean to you? Like, is it fulfilling? Is it one of those things where, okay, well, I've done that, let's keep moving on? Or how does that feel?
I don't pay any attention to it because truly every time you start a new project, you're starting from scratch. And you'll only be able to continue as long as either enough people buy tickets if it's a feature film, or enough people continue to watch. So, there are no free passes. You have to continue to reinvent yourself. And it's wonderful, and I really appreciate all the success that I've been able to achieve. But it's a collaborative business. So I get to work with the great people, and that's what keeps me excited and energized about continuing to do it, is that I work with such great teams of people.
And obviously on top of the people that you've worked with, who have been your biggest influences when it comes to who you've worked with or who you've learned from?
I wouldn't be sitting here today if not for my first boss, Roger Corman. He started off so many careers, not just mine, but Martin Scorsese's and Francis Coppola's and Jim Cameron's, Ron Howard's, Jack Nicholson's. And he was someone who not only hired me, but believed in me and essentially taught me how to produce. And from that point on, it's really been trusting not only my judgment, but trusting in the people that I've partnered with, whether it's Jim Cameron or Frank Darabont. I've worked with Michael Bay. I've worked with so many talented people that, it really is about those partnerships.
And kind of going off of that as well, how does it make you feel with, obviously, we talked a little bit about lunch, where you have these laws coming into effect where it's hard for people just to go in and get that entry job, maybe unpaid internship or not, just because of the way the laws are. How does that kind of make you feel where the way that so many people have entered into the business is kind of becoming limited? What does that mean for students or for people just trying to get in?
Well, it's really difficult because a few people can ruin it for everybody. So many of the people that I've hired at my company started out as interns and were so valuable to the company that I hired them on full time. And now it's only going to be available to students who happen to be lucky enough to attend a university like UGA that offers credit for work experience. And I know it can be taken advantage of, that interns have been taken advantage of but there are dishonest people everywhere. And if you're working for free, you can always quit. But it really is depriving a lot of people of that entry-level experience that will get them launched into their career.
Let me flip to the back slide here real quick. So I know I put it on social media that we're going to have the interview, and I know a couple of people sent me some really interesting questions. How much does it cost generally to do an episode of The Walking Dead?
Of course, that's one of those things I can't talk about.
Okay.
We have two different budgets. One is called the amortization budget, and that's a budget for the overall cost of the season, and that includes if we're building a big set like we did with the prison, that goes in the amortization budget. So it's not really broken down the way that you would break down a feature film.
And I also got a question about how everything's multi-platform. You guys are on Netflix. When people watch the episode, they can pull up their iPads and have this multi-platform feeling when they're watching your show. Kind of being on the pioneer side of that with television shows, do you think that is something that stays in this industry? Is it something that will keep going, or do you think it's a fad?
I think it's absolutely essential for certain types of shows. Ours lends itself to that because it is a genre show, it's based on a comic book, and the fans are really committed. We're a serialized show, so the characters have had long lives before a particular episode. It's not a procedural show that's closed-ended, that everything's solved in a particular episode. So I think in this particular genre, for serialized shows, it's going to be essential, and audiences will come to expect it and demand it.
So kind of moving forward with the upcoming season, it's a few weeks away from the first episode debuting. What can fans expect? I know there's a couple cliffhangers.
Well, this season we are intensifying the experience, not only for the characters being pushed to their limits, the way that Rick Grimes, our lead, was pushed to his limit last season. Everyone's going to experience that kind of pressure. We're also going to see what kind of father Rick becomes after essentially he's seen his son Carl become a child soldier who shoots first and doesn't ask questions. And the governor is still out there, and I have a feeling that his intentions aren't necessarily benevolent ones.
Okay, and so kind of just wrapping it up, more on you're coming here today, just talk a little bit about being able to come and talk to students, people that look up to you, see you as a pioneer that, we were talking about at lunch where women didn't have the biggest role in the industry, and now you're almost kind of leading the way for a lot of people in that way. How does it feel to come to UGA, not just for the award side of it, but to come and talk to students who look up to you and things of that nature?
Well, I really think it's important to encourage, hopefully inspire, and also provide insight into how I got to where I am, so that people understand that it's not only a difficult road, but it's one that at the end of the day, with perseverance and commitment and a degree of talent, they can achieve the same kind of success that I've had.